Trust is the most important thing when it comes to the BBC, especially in this environment. And our goal was to demonstrate that we use the same standards, the same approach to creating content for our commercial partners as we do for our editorial partners, which is very important because that's what ultimately makes the largest impact for the brands that we work with. In order to create an effective campaign, it's really about understanding the audience and the goals of the advertiser that we're working with, and then really making sure that we form an emotional connection with the advertiser and audience that we are working with. So we've done a number of studies called the Science of Engagement, which actually measures the emotional connection between a piece of content and an audience. So we use that same approach to drive very impactful programs for the advertiser, and then distribute it through a number of channels, mainly on our homepage, as well as through our social channels with editorial handles. And then BBC Storyworks actually has over 200,000 followers of its own on Facebook. We have 3 very specific lanes in which we partner with our advertisers, and we make sure that it's very clear to them which lane we're in. So of course there's the editorial sponsorship, which is a place that advertisers can surround existing editorial. But as you know, with the integrity of the BBC, that is a pretty hands-off environment for advertisers. Then we have a lane that's called the branded lane, which ultimately focuses on just telling stories specifically about the brands that we work with. So we can customize them to really anything that the brand is looking to do, but use the same integrity that we have from an editorial standpoint, although it is completely separate from our editorial team. The third lane is our partnered lane, where we tell stories that have a little bit more editorial merit to them, aren't necessarily about the brand themselves, but in the case that we spoke about here for Huawei, was a brand storytelling exercise that we did where we talked about exploration, because Huawei's main point for this campaign was to show how exploration breeds affinity for their brand. So that's a third lane that we use to work with advertisers that don't want to tell a story necessarily about themselves, but want to tell something that is just very interesting to the target audience that they're looking for.
How do you gauge and present the ROI from these programs?
Absolutely. Well, at a minimum, we really look to make sure that we hit certain benchmarks across all of our campaigns. That has to do with yes click-through, yes impression, but also consumption of the videos that we're producing. And at the same time, we have a proprietary study that we've done where we actually use this technology to measure the emotional connection as well as the emotional effectiveness of the programs that we create, which is called Science of Engagement. So that's one of the bigger tools that we use to determine whether or not we've been effective and have driven ROI, because it measures how a person actually reacts to the content that we've created. And ultimately that brand lift and that experience for an audience member is really the most important thing.